Hey Alexa, will you help me cover up a murder? Hey everyone, it's John Lord, and we have a very interesting topic to talk about today on JohnnyVlogs. But before we get to that, I have to thank some new Patreon supporters, starting off with Shannon Steffi. Thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. Also, Mochi. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't do it without you guys. And finally, in a first, I have a Patreon supporter with quite an interesting name. Thank you so much, Poop Dick Tracy. Now, I kind of like that one, but let me just say, if the names get too graphic or something, I'm going to start cutting them down to initials. So I just don't want to see this trend get too wild, but I do kind of appreciate Poop Dick Tracy. So thank you guys so much for all the support. Now, back to the topic at hand. In the description box below, you will find an article about Amazon Echo, also known as Alexa, and there's some pretty interesting things going on with that. Let me just read a couple of short clips to you real quick from this article. Amazon is balking at a search warrant seeking cloud-stored data from its Alexa voice service. Arkansas authorities want to examine the recorded voice and transcription data as part of a murder investigation. Among other things, the Seattle company claims that the recorded data from an Amazon Echo near a murder scene is protected by the First Amendment, as are the responses from the voice assistant itself. And this is an article from Ars Technica. One other little piece of info I wanted to read to you. The warrant at issue concerns the 2015 death of former Georgia police officer Victor Collins. He was found dead in a hot tub at the Bentonville home of Bates, who claimed the death was an accidental drowning. They suspect that the Amazon Echo they found streaming music near the hot tub may help solve the case. So Bates is actually James Bates, who is being seen as the defendant in this case. And another note, he has a Nexus phone, but apparently it is encrypted at the chipset level. This is stopping the authorities from being able to access his phone. If he did, apparently there's a companion application that you can install on your cell phone to work with your Amazon Echo or with Alexa. So if he did install that, the police might have been able to get the same data from his cell phone. However, they can't access that. So that's why they're trying to reach directly to Amazon's stored information. And there's a couple things that come up in my mind on this. First of all, there's just a very interesting question about, does an electronic device have the same rights as a person? And I believe in the way that they're trying to kind of fight this search warrant, they're citing a lot of law that I think pertains more to corporations. And there's even kind of a fuzzy, interesting gray area there, because corporations in large try to have the same rights as individuals. But what's interesting about that is it's kind of a one-direction relationship, the way I see it. For example, if you have someone get murdered, you don't blame a corporation for that necessarily. I guess, in an accidental death you might. But in terms of criminal charges, and guys, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, I can't think of any time that like a corporation was held on criminal charges. Now, yes, they've been forced to pay money perhaps, but has a corporation ever served prison time? How do you even do that? There's this weird protection where people working for the corporation are not the corporation itself. So it gets really, really fuzzy really quick. But outside of all that, I think we're talking about something a little different. And this is only going to become more of a complex issue as electronics become more autonomous, as they're doing more things for us and starting to calculate and do things kind of on their own. Essentially, how Alexa works is, I guess the commands that Alexa hears actually go to a cloud service where that information is interpreted and then a result is kicked back to the device. So there was a little noise about a TV that kind of had a feature like this. I think it was by Samsung, if I recall correctly. And the thing was, people were kind of worried about their TV listening in on them the whole time. So I think that Amazon is trying to avoid having too much publicity about this case, and that's why they're trying to stop this from happening. I mean, think about it. If the police do recover information from an Amazon Echo that really helps crack their case, that is going to make huge, huge news and could potentially impact the sales of Amazon Echoes, because then people are going to say, well, hey, you know, I do something that maybe isn't 100% legal in my house, and what if I say that something about that, and then Amazon Echo picks it up, and then all of a sudden it's off in the cloud, and the authorities come and they're able to find that later. It certainly raises some questions. Quite honestly, I hope most of you guys are thinking about those questions already, because I certainly am. Even when the new Xbox came out and it came with the Kinect originally, they had included all these new features for the Xbox that you could just speak to turn it on, speak to turn it off. And there's still this thing in the back of my head that's like, oh wait, that means that it's literally listening the whole time. Now, yes, there is trigger words so that it knows when to act, but it's still processing all the other sound around those trigger words. So what happens in that process, what happens to that data, is somewhat important. And I think this case is really highlighting that in a bit of a unique way. So, in short, does Alexa in particular have First Amendment rights? And the way they state it, the First Amendment rights of this device and or the company should protect it in terms of the First Amendment and keep its speech private. So I did just a little digging on that. Let's just read, just as a refresher, what the First Amendment is. Let's see here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I don't pick up any little section of that that has to do with privacy. Maybe it's implied in terms of where it talks about the free exercise of speech. That's a heck of an implication I don't know if I could quite make. So I did another search on this just about the right to privacy in particular, and over at constitution.laws.com we get kind of a quick and dirty answer. The United States Constitution does not contain any explicit right to privacy. However, the Bill of Rights expresses the concerns of James Madison along with other framers of the Constitution for protecting certain aspects of privacy. For example, the First Amendment allows the privacy of beliefs. The Third Amendment protects privacy of the home against any demands to be used to house soldiers. The Fourth Amendment protects the privacy of a person and possessions from unreasonable searches. And the Fifth Amendment protects privacy of personal information through preventing self-incrimination. So it's interesting they cited the First Amendment in terms of their response, because I don't know if that really applies. Sounds to me more like the Fourth Amendment, maybe the Fifth, but I think really the Fourth is probably the strongest there. But even outside of all that, we're really taking this down to a conversation of, does my electronic device have the same rights as a person? If it does, let's flip that the other direction. Let's assume that Amazon Echo device does have information about this person being murdered. Is that device now an accomplice to the crime, since they are, or not an accomplice, but an accessory to the crime since they're protecting that information? Jumping over to Wikipedia, just to get a better definition on being an accessory is a person, right off the bat, who assists in the commission of a crime. Okay, so I don't think the Echo told someone to kill someone else, didn't help pay for someone to. Now that's an interesting thought. What if he did a search online through the Echo to find someone to kill someone else? I think once again we're hitting gray areas around this. But who does not actually participate in the commission of the crime as a joint principal. The distinction between an accessory and a principal is a question of fact and degree. It's very interesting to me, because even if you did try to go down that road, how do you prosecute that? What, are you going to put Alexa in prison? That makes no sense. Are you going to put the company Amazon in prison? No, that makes no sense either. So once again, it comes to this question, and There's another whole side to this. There's a bunch more research you could do on it in terms of companies and them having individual rights and how those things go. I touched on it a little bit at the start of the video, but it is a very deep rabbit hole. I really don't want to go in right now, but just know that if your brain is already tickled by this topic, you can look at it a few different ways. But I do think it's interesting. I think this question's only going to come up more. Personally, I believe that if Amazon has information that could help the authorities with determining if someone committed a crime or not, that could play both ways. I mean, quite honestly, there might be evidence on there to help the guy that is supposedly the defendant in this case as well. I would personally like to think that Amazon would do the right thing there, not think so much about the marketability or the fears of what articles might come out about their product, and just get that information to the authorities so they can review it. I do understand, and I know a lot of us out here, we're still holding on to this idea of privacy, particularly older people, people my age and up. The younger generation, I don't think really has any semblance of that. Kind of once you were born with the internet, there's this mysterious interconnectedness that all of us have now, and privacy is kind of becoming this kind of old-timers story. Some people are still struggling with that, but if you look at what we know is happening in our country in terms of data being acquired, particularly by the NSA, I don't think this is such a big step. I think, as a matter of fact, the NSA might already have the information that the authorities are specifically looking for here. So it's really interesting to me. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Should a device, first of all, have rights, the same rights as a person does? And if it does, shouldn't we be able to prosecute that device also for not complying with a criminal investigation, for not responding to an appropriate search warrant that was issued by a judge? Tell me about it in the comments below. My brain's going to keep spinning on this one. I've been thinking about this for days already. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great start to your week. I'll catch you right back here on the Lord and Arch channel. Have a good one.